Servus and welcome everyone. Fridays for Future had called for another worldwide demonstration and raised the questions: what do we want and when do we want it? The little ones from my neighborhood were already on their way. And as I consider myself a hobby photographer, I geared up with a stills camera, this tiny action camera, and set out for an FFF Fridays for Future Fuji walk. On my way, I thought about the raised question, what do we want? And as I understand it, the youngsters are calling for a decisive and courageous policy to keep the global temperature rise below 1.5 degrees Celsius. This is what was noted down in the 2015 Paris Agreement, so what? Well, as it appears, there's a possibility that we will not achieve this goal. Moreover, it seems to be ambitious. But why is it so difficult? By the way, the police was on its way too, as you can see in this reflection shot. From my point of view, they weren't needed because the protests were peaceful. So, back to the question, what's the problem? Actually, we need to face a lot of different problems. Let's take road traffic as an example. The emission of CO2 and fine dust is just a starting point when it comes to the downsides caused by this form of mobility. As you can see, we have already reached the protest march. Back to road traffic. So, cars. They are highly resource intensive in production and in routine operation, and a lot of the time the routine operation is caging just one single person in a traffic jam. Sorry, actually that's nonsense. On average, 95% of the time, a car is standing around without its owner in it and getting in the way of everyone who wants to move in public space. Despite that, every car turns itself into a radiator after 2 minutes of usage, which makes it almost impossible to enjoy the summer in the city. And last but not least, it's inevitable that people get hurt or killed in car crashes. If anyone can figure out what is written on the street in this picture, please let me know in the comments. At the right bottom of this picture you can see a sign saying Tempo 100. I'm ashamed to say that the ones in charge in Austria cannot even reach an agreement to reduce the speed limit on highways to 100 kilometers an hour. They say that they do not want to regulate how fast you drive and that it is an individual responsibility. There are two statements in the sentence I cannot reproduce. One, we already have a speed limit set that doesn't allow us to drive as fast as we want. So why not reduce it a little for the greater good? And number two, authorities sometimes try to shift their own responsibility over to residents. So does the industry by lobbying and well-executed marketing. They create the narrative that the consumer is liable for every single individual choice she or he makes. I refuse to believe that. Authorities are like the boss to make far-sighted plans and relevant decisions. True cost pricing, for example. Ecological and social costs are more often than not forgotten in the pricing process. The product is shipped around the world for 3 times before it is offered to me probably 10% cheaper than the regional alternative, if there is an alternative at all. My attitude towards this greedy and unjustifiable behavior is no, I'm not buying. By the way, this guy and his entourage. They were great and they made a big fuss with their drums. There is a ton of topics we have to take care of in the upcoming years. Environmental disasters like storms, heat waves or rising sea levels will not make our everyday life more pleasing. We should stop polluting our land, water and air, not to mention the outer space. There will be climate refugees and extraordinary high penalty payments when failing the climate targets, which we probably will. Even in my small, secure home country of Austria, negative effects related to global warming like dying woods, floodings and water shortages amounted to 2 billion euros in 2020. And this money was used to just clean up the mess. 2 billion euros. Pfft. Preventive actions are necessary. And in my humble opinion, our resources are limited and we need to act accordingly. After demonstrating in support of a better future, it was time to discuss the matter a bit further over a pint of beer down in the pub. Surprisingly, we haven't found a solution to the world's biggest problems in the pub, but it was close. Instead, I found a little green star, as you can see in the bottom right corner of this picture. That day, everyone who attended the demonstration was a star to me of a, let's call it, green movement. Which brings me back to the two main questions of Fridays for Future. What do we want? And the answer to the second question is without a doubt obvious.